Imagine two different patients facing the exact same devastating medical diagnosis, severe spinal cord injuries that will leave them completely paralyzed. For the younger patient, the loss was paralyzing in more ways than one. He looked out at the vast horizon of experiences he hadn't yet lived, realizing those doors were now permanently closed, and felt a profound, heartbreaking grief over what he could no longer access. The older patient took an entirely different approach, knowing he was never going to walk again. But instead of mourning the loss, he completely abandoned the things he could no longer do and pointed all of his energy toward the things he could still accomplish. The result of that simple mental shift is striking. Because he strictly focused on his remaining capabilities, this older, paralyzed patient actually maintained a higher baseline of happiness than many of his able-bodied peers who could still walk. This divergence suggests that even under the same physical constraints, the quality of our daily experience is dictated heavily by which doors we choose to look at, the ones that closed or the ones still open. You don't need a severe medical trauma to experience a shrinking horizon. The standard, universal process of aging naturally closes doors for every single one of us as time goes on. When physical limitations inevitably creep in, it is incredibly easy to fall into the trap of living by default. We risk becoming exactly like that younger patient, staring backward at our unfulfilled potential, mourning what we missed. The bucket list serves as a practical, psychological anchor, a way to force intentionality into a life that might otherwise slide into passive regret. Documenting these essential experiences creates a roadmap for the present. Completing them now ensures those memories are secure, regardless of the sudden biological hurdles, like a stroke or heart attack, that can appear without warning. Deliberate, proactive planning is the only reliable way to avoid the quiet tragedy of running out of time with your most important goals left undone. Psychologists often point to a documented dip in life satisfaction during middle age. It acts as a critical period where we have to stop and recalibrate what actually brings us joy. In your 20s, your goals might revolve around novelty and adrenaline, like learning to fly airplanes. But once you build a family and prioritize stability, those high-stakes ambitions naturally drop away. You start discovering a much deeper satisfaction in simple presence. Just being outside, feeling the crisp air, and climbing around the sweeping red rocks in Sedona with your child becomes a peak life experience. You also see a resurgence of slow, deliberate hobbies, like sketching human figures on a quiet afternoon. These are precisely the kinds of quiet activities you likely ignored while grinding through the career-building years of your 20s and 30s. Maintaining happiness as you age requires a strict willingness to adapt your desires so they align with your current biological reality. As personal desires evolve, professional drives change right alongside them. Eventually, the appetite to grind through the tedious, everyday grunt work of a career fades out. That creates a psychological vacuum, which gets filled by a drive called generativity. This is the deep, hardwired human need to guide, to influence, and connect with the generation coming up behind you. Older adults maintain high life satisfaction by shifting their core identity. They stop trying to acquire new personal achievements and instead begin sharing their accrued wisdom through mentorship, volunteering, and education. Actively transferring knowledge effectively cures the feeling of obsolescence. It allows retired individuals to wake up every single day feeling completely and deeply useful to the people around them. Ultimately, purpose in these later years shifts toward the preservation and transfer of experience, making the individual's value social rather than just personal. We can actually measure how powerful this connection is. There is a direct biological link between an elder's cognitive health and the amount of time they spend interacting with their grandchildren. This is a chart tracking hours spent with grandchildren on the bottom axis against the elder's cognitive health on the side. When we trace the data, we see a distinct positive peak right at exactly 5 hours of interaction per week. That specific dosage is linked to improved memory function. But watch what happens when the commitment pushes past 20 hours a week. The data plunges steeply into the negative zone. The elder becomes exhausted, and the cognitive benefits are completely reversed. Hitting that healthy 5-hour sweet spot usually centers around shared rituals, like a multi-generational family gathering for Passover. When surveyed at the end of their lives, people consistently cite these exact family moments as their most vital, anchoring memories. A deeply enriched life works in both directions. Passing down simple wisdom shapes the minds of the youth, while actively sustaining the health of the elder. In the end, a satisfying life requires letting go of the physical things we can no longer do, and intentionally connecting with the people we leave behind.